In the very early 90s, I wanted a Super Nintendo, and naturally guilt-tripped my parents into getting me one, but there was a caveat in that they simply couldn't really afford it. At the time, given that there was not yet any second-hand SNESes on the market, they got the cheapest option, which was, surprisingly, the Super Scope package. So that was my cheap-ish way of getting a Super Nintendo, but obviously, immediately I've got this Super Nintendo and no games catalogue. To be fair, I did borrow a bunch of games off my cousin quite immediately, so that resolved that issue. But a year or two down the line, I had started to build up a collection. We were probably near the end of my dalliance with the Super Nintendo. We were in London for the summer, house sitting, and my mum took me into London. And it was incredibly hot. I felt a bit rubbish, being dragged around. My mum, I think, felt bad for me, and we went into a second-hand video game store, either in Notting Hill Gate or Tottenham Court Road, I can't remember, but one of those two. In those days you had proper independent second-hand shops with competitive pricing on games. Unlike now, we just have CEX dictating the price of every used game. By happy chance my grandmother was with us, and of course as a child you exploit your grandmother's generosity wherever you can. And so she bought me 2 Super Nintendo games. To be fair to my mum, she had quite recently been to the same shop and bought me the American import of Super Star Wars and a converter, so I think we were pretty square at that point. But my grandmother let me buy 2 games. I imagine they had to be cheap. It wasn't a blank check situation. And I picked up WWF Super WrestleMania. Now, I've played this recently to reacquaint myself with it, and I played it and I was like, yes, I remember this. I started playing as The Undertaker, as I always do. I was like, oh yeah, I know this game. But seriously, that was a folly of a purchase because I was not into wrestling and I found it really quite clunky. The other game I bought was Desert Strike. Now Desert Strike's an excellent game and I don't think I gave it enough time back in the day. But you can't fix the past, you can't have buyer's remorse over it, so let's review Desert Strike as it is now. Desert Strike, of course, came out in 1992 on a variety of platforms. I want to review it because it forms a significant part of my video gaming memories, even though I barely dabbled in it. Which is a real shame, as I say. Desert Strike at the time looked very cool with its isometric graphics and zeitgeist topic of the Gulf War, and that seemed like a good idea at the time. I don't know. But it certainly provided enough subject matter for a video game, and a very good video game. So I had a look at some of the other ports of Desert Strike that were made, mostly on systems I could have had, just out of curiosity, because I love these multi-platform ports. I find it really fascinating how they translate to different technologies. The Atari Lynx port, see, I wish I'd actually had this game on Atari Lynx. I think I would have given it a lot more time, because that console had a really limited catalogue. The sound on it's pretty great, actually, and it looks good. I would say that it's a bit of a regret that I never realised how really quite good Desert Strike seemed to be on the Lynx. I haven't done a deep dive into it, but it seems like a strong port. Another platform I kind of would have been delighted to have Desert Strike on was Game Boy. I mean, it looks good. It looks like, I mean, it's obviously Game Boy, so it's green screen, but it looks like the SNES game. It's very well translated to that small handheld, and I think I'd have really enjoyed it on the Game Boy. Going over to the Sega side of things, the Master System and the Game Gear, basically the same. I had both those systems. I had the Game Gear around the time of Desert Strike, but I don't know if I'd have really wanted it on the Game Gear. I do like the look of it. It's sort of got like flatter look, because obviously it's like stretched pixels perhaps, but it looks like a really strong port for both systems. I definitely think it would have been something I'd have enjoyed on the Master System if I still had had a Master System at the time. Desert Strike came out on a variety of other platforms, allegedly even Macintosh, although I couldn't find any footage of it, but it was on DOS, Game Boy Advance, Mega Drive Genesis, and even PSP. But another version that I looked into was Amiga, and what struck me about the Amiga version was how vivid the sound effects were. They were grating in moments, but generally really impressive sound. I think the Amiga version looks fantastic. To my sensibilities, better than the Super Nintendo version. And generally it just looks like a very nice port indeed. The Amiga Desert Strike might just be the standout port. I don't know how it plays though, to be fair. Obviously Desert Strike was part of the Strike series, that slightly strange series umbrella title that I'm not sure really exists outside of Wikipedia, but who knows. In 1993 there was Jungle Strike, which was on a multitude of platforms. I had it on MS-DOS, and it was played about as much as I played Desert Strike on the Super Nintendo, sadly. Probably should have given it a bit more of a go. I don't think it's a dramatic change in gameplay. Most strikingly, I saw it was on the CD32, but it didn't look that great for a 32-bit port. Then Urban Strike came in 1994, and the number of ports it was on decreased by that point. You can see it here on the Game Boy. It looks fine. Again, it doesn't look like a dramatic step forward, but it looks okay. I'm sure it's a perfectly reasonable game. A couple of years after that, there was Soviet Strike. Now, I had not heard of Soviet Strike. It was released on PlayStation and Sega Saturn only, and we're moving into the 3D era with Soviet Strike, and it looks quite nice, it sounds good, but I was quite surprised to find that the series had perpetuated to a fourth game. And to my surprise, a year later there was Nuclear Strike, which you can see here on the N64. Again, it looks fine, looks good, it sounds like a nice 64-bit console game. It's nothing dramatically different though, is it? It just always seems to be basically the same thing. And I'm not saying that you need like the wheel reinvented every time. I'm just sort of curious as to whether these sequels ever introduced anything slightly new or innovative to the gameplay. I would not want to spend hours on any of these games, but I go back to Desert Strike a bit now, and like a few games from back in the day, I kind of regret that I didn't give it more of a chance. Because Desert Strike's a really nice game. Graphically, I think it looked really great for the time. I'm a sucker for isometric stuff, and it's colourful, it's detailed pixel art, it's hard not to love. The sound is vivid, the sound samples are really strong, and they are actually great indicators of whether you're hitting your targets, etc. And they've implemented this sound well into the gameplay to be not just atmospheric, but actually useful to the player. The controls are great and smooth, and I think that it's easy to get the hang of. There's good inertia. Sometimes the aiming is a little bit vague, and when you've got limited ammo, it's slightly frustrating to waste ammo just because you think you've got a shot lined up and you haven't, but it's nitpicking because that's a very smoothly implemented control system. I really like how it explains what your missions are, and there is a clear order to how you should do things. I like games that break it down for me and tell me exactly what I need to do. I don't want you to do it for me, I don't want to have my hand held, but don't be vague. And Desert Strike is not vague. It's a really well designed game, it works perfectly. I have no criticisms. I've never really tested the longevity of Desert Strike because it's a game that I go back to and I try it and I play it for a bit and then I forget about it. I am sure it's a game that you can go deep into, but what I have noticed is it feels a little bit samey. I'm sure it gets harder, but one piece of desert looks a lot like another piece of desert, sadly, and that's a bit of a letdown. It's a shame they couldn't shoehorn some sort of geographical variety into it, but yes, it is called Desert Strike. So Desert Strike is a game I have fond memories of for reasons that are adjacent almost to the actual playing of the game. But I can't knock it. I think it's well made, it's a really nice looking game. It's a game that you play it now, it's like, yeah, this is still good. And I love all the different ports of it. I think it's great how the different systems incorporated it, and I think it's great how it works on different systems and has a little bit of its own unique identity on each one. And I was mildly surprised by just how many sequels they made. But what a fun game, and not exactly a deep cut, but if somehow you haven't tried it, I would definitely try it.